Your hospital has an AI strategy. The EHR vendor says their native AI will handle everything. The radiologist wants a point solution for imaging. The ED head wants predictive triage. 3 purchases later, 3 new data silos. Your integration team is buried under HL7 feeds and custom APIs never built for this. And every vendor tells the same story. Just buy our platform and your data problems go away. The truth is, your hospital's fragmented data is not an accident. It is a procurement artifact. And no AI tool will fix it until you change how you buy. I'm Chris. 20 years in healthcare, the last decade in cloud and AI. I'm the healthcare architect. In this video, I am going to show you why hospital data fragmentation is a buying pattern failure, not an IT issue, and the exact procurement question that stops creating disconnected systems every time a clinical department asks for AI. Let us start where every hospital IT conversation starts, the legacy EHR. It holds patient records, it is deeply embedded in clinical workflow, and it was never designed to share data with anything built after 2010. Industry analysis highlights a critical reality. Many health systems operate with outdated electronic health record systems that lack standardized formats, making data integration an uphill battle. This is backed by a 2025 Hart report confirming that legacy EHR infrastructure with poor interoperability and non-standard formats remains widespread across healthcare. Now layer AI on top. AI models require vast reservoirs of structured data, but hospital datasets are frequently fragmented, unstructured, or incomplete. Preparing this data for AI is both time and cost intensive. In fact, KLAS Research found that only 24% of healthcare providers can effectively use their clinical data. But this is where most analysis miss the real culprit. The reason this data is disconnected isn't because of a technical glitch, it is because procurement approved it. Clinical Department X needed a solution. A vendor showed up with a shiny product, a pilot and a compelling demo. Procurement signed a contract. 3 years later, the integration team is left trying to wire it into the enterprise data warehouse. And the vendor has already pivoted, the API is deprecated, or the underlying data model is entirely proprietary. This is not a technology problem, it is an incentive problem. Every vendor promises their AI platform will consolidate and unify your data. Some suggest connector platforms, which aim to link AI solutions as part of a unified infrastructure. That is correct as far as it goes. But middleware only connects the applications you already own. It does not stop you from buying the next application that creates yet another isolated repository. Here is the structural problem. Procurement evaluates AI vendors on 2 things, capability and price. Nobody asks what happens to my data architecture if this vendor exits the market in 3 years. That question does not appear on any ROI template, but it should. In financial services, regulators require exactly this kind of vendor risk scoring. The US Treasury's AI risk management framework evaluates third-party data risk as a core compliance dimension. Yet even there, 72% of institutions admit they have only partial awareness of which vendors use AI. Healthcare organizations keep trying to solve a structural problem with point solutions. Each AI tool pulls data from the systems closest and easiest to access. That might be the departmental shadow instance of the EHR. That might be a flat file export from 2019. Each tool creates its own data store, schema, and update cycle. Buy another AI tool from another vendor. The same thing happens. 3 AI tools, 3 data stores, 3 schemas. Your AI-ready data problem is 3 times worse. This is the centrifuge effect. Every new AI purchase accelerates the fragmentation. Connector platforms are a treatment, not a prevention. Let me be precise about what I am not saying. Data quality does matter. Interoperability standards do matter. But buying AI tools as standalone applications and hoping to unify the data layer after the fact has never worked at scale. In banking, Deloitte's 2026 Outlook reports AI initiatives stuck in isolated proofs of concept, throttled by fragmented data foundations and legacy systems. Over 90% of bank data users say the data they need is often unavailable. In pharma, a 2026 Deloitte survey found 80% of organizations use generative AI, but only 22% have scaled successfully, with 70% of data remaining dark and analytically inaccessible. Healthcare is not unique. The pattern is identical across regulated industries. What does work is starting with the architecture. The buying pattern that stops fragmentation begins with a foundational question before any AI evaluation starts. Not what can AI do for us, not what is our AI strategy. The first question is, what is our data architecture intended to look like in 3 years? What systems will be feeding what, and where are the boundaries? When you have that map, evaluate every AI vendor against one criterion. Does this product complement the architecture or create a new silo? A vendor can have the most compelling clinical AI on the market. If their product requires data to live inside their platform, that is another walled garden. If you are going to use connector platforms, let's give that strategy some real teeth. Middleware works when it sits on top of a data infrastructure with intentional, clear boundaries. Without those lines, connectors just become massive technical debt. You end up managing a fragile web of custom integrations that only your lead developer understands. Evaluate AI as an architectural decision. The clinical use case is necessary but not sufficient. The sufficient question is, does this purchase move us toward a coherent data architecture or away from it? Too often, industry analysis ends on a generic optimistic note, claiming that challenges are significant but not insurmountable, and that deliberate planning can turn roadblocks into stepping stones. That is easy to say, but deliberate planning has to happen before the ink is dry on the contract. Not after the disconnected databases are already running in production. This is about changing the very behavior that created your fragmentation in the first place. By asking the one question most hospital buying committees completely overlook, here is your action item. Before your next AI procurement, define your data boundaries. Draw the lines on a whiteboard. Which systems feed which? Where does data live? Where does it flow? And where are the walls? Then score every vendor against that map. Not just on capability, not just on price, but on architectural impact. Does this purchase create another isolated repository, or does it play within the lines you have already drawn? If the answer is it creates a new walled garden, and the clinical use case is compelling enough that you are going to buy it anyway, then you have just identified a future integration project before you signed the contract. That is a fundamentally different conversation than discovering it 2 years later, when the vendor is gone and the data is locked. That is the shift. Fragmentation is not a data problem your data team needs to fix. It is a buying pattern your organization needs to change. I'm Chris, I'm the healthcare architect. If this frames a problem you recognize, you know where to find me. See you in the next one.